up to speed on what's happening down there now. So, give a round of applause to Mr. Campbell.
A little bit about myself. 2012, I found myself out of a job. I've been a mailman for about the past 6 years. And so 2012, I found myself out of a job and had been looking for something to do. And during the early 1980s, my grandmother, my aunt, and some people from St. Bernard's were involved with trying to clean up the cemetery down there. So about a year before this took place, me and my brother had discussed, and we actually took a walk out there and had discussed trying to pick up where our aunts and grandparents and people from Dayton get locked up at back then. So that's where it's all started. And met some people on Facebook, and that's where this got rolling. I'll go into that with some pictures. Right here's St. Francis Church and the priest's house. That would have been on the north side of the church towards the river. That was located on Denham Street, right below, between 3rd and 2nd Street in Dayton. The church collapsed during the 1913 flood, and in 1914, St. Bernard's opened up in Dayton and moved to higher ground. And the schoolhouse was there, and I had a friend, a classmate at Dayton that lived there, so I actually was in the schoolhouse there, so, which was around the corner there. This was the inside of St. Francis Church. There are some of the relics that were in here that are at St. Bernard's Church to this day. It was moved there after the flood. This was the schoolhouse. I think that was maybe like in 86 or 87 that was tore down when they built the industrial park in Dayton. But it was a very beautiful building. It was apartments during my childhood. This is on coming from 5th down Denham Street, intersection 4th. I grew up about 6 houses to the left of this picture. It was some of the houses are still there to this day. I actually have a best friend that lives in that White House in Saturday.
Which one is that?
That was from 1913. Yes, yes. This is a lithograph made by a man who's buried at St. Francis. His name is Joseph John. He drew a picture for recruitment during World War I, and it was in almost every post office at the time. There's another view of the church after flood. You see the kind of devastation that was around it at the time. There's a lot of pictures of houses that are just left off the foundation and stuff. So it's amazing to see what Mother Nature does. You know, we live in a time of flood walls and things. As a child, I remember when the river would come up in Dayton, and we'd have friends come and have to stay with us. I lived on 4th Street. So it wasn't on too much of higher ground, but enough that we'd have to take people in during the floods. There's another view. This is on 3rd Street, looking towards the church. Mr. Clark, a lot of you are familiar with him, but he had quite a few series in his book about Dayton. And you see all the houses that are lifted up, and that's down in this area here.
When was the flood wall built?
That was started being built in the late 70s, and I think it was completed in 84, I believe. This was a church bulletin. This is kind of like what it looked like back then. There was a nun house right behind it, between it and the school, but it's out right there on the corner there. This is one of the earlier pictures we have that was given to us. I believe this is from the 1950s. You can see there's a fence there that's been gone for a long time, and even back then, it's not in the best of shape. When the railroad came through there in the 1880s, and I think it's literally feet from the cemetery, over the years all that gravel and stuff's washed down into the front of the cemetery. So there's still traces of the cement cord foundation that the fence sat in that we found when we were cleaning up there, but that's about the only thing left there. There is no fence there. It's been a lot of vandalism there.
So you on the right?
It's a nice reference point for us up there because you can actually see the headstones. I would say that there might be 45% of the headstones that you'll see in this picture that are still there. From that hill shifting, which you'll see from where we cleaned up the newer picture, just the terrain of the land is so much different now. And it's amazing how much it's changed. Yet there's trees that are still there from these pictures.
Can you give us an idea where this cemetery is located?
This cemetery is located on, it's in the, where Effingham Steakhouse sat and Dayton on Route 8 is directly behind that area.
How big was the cemetery? What land area?
There's probably about 6 acres. Originally it was 5 acres and they added some more land to it. Is that right?
Yes, 5 is what the purchase was.
Originally, yes, and then they added some land and they said.
Do you know about how old this cemetery is?
Yeah, it opened on, in 1859 was when it was dedicated. But the first burial was about 6 months prior to that. Here's a picture that was from the messenger for the diocese. And that tree that you see in the black and white photo was that tree that's right there. So it's still standing. I believe the picture was from 1968. It's in the bulletin there. The St. Francis Church came about during the 1840s. There was about 40 Catholic families in Jamestown, which is dated today, but it was Jamestown at the time. And the ground was purchased for St. Francis Church in 1851, and the church was dedicated in 1854. And the cemetery land didn't come until 1958. This here is I don't know if you all heard of DuPont Plumbing that's right up here in Southgate. That's one of their family members there. He's originally from Dayton. That's a sketch of what was the chapel. It was basically, it wasn't a very big building, but it was more like a holding place for caskets during the winter time. Because back then, I mean, everything was handed up. So in 1912, a storm came through and took this out. There was some really beautiful architecture on the sides of this building with angels and stuff, and there's still little pieces of it there. But for whatever reason, it's before my time and no one knows, that it was never rebuilt. And so just kind of but there was quite a few burials beyond 1912. I kind of think that it's a hill shape, and it's very steep in that area. So I got a feeling that maybe there was too many mudslides and things of that nature that came about and kept them from rebuilding it. And it would be quite an undertaking to do that. Going back to how I started into this is my grandma in the center and my aunt to the right, and that's this 40, she's from Dayton also. This was like 1981 when they had started some work at the cemetery. They made it about to where that tree was I showed you previously. They said they cut down 49 trees just between the railroad tracks and there. That's how thick it was at that time. It was very thick. But they didn't get far beyond that. So, but that was my inspiration. My grandmother remarried a gentleman because I had never really known my grandpa Weiss. And the man she married was the Dayton police chief back in the 60s and 70s. His name was Ed Poos. And his family's all buried there. And then my mom's not Catholic, but there is an unconsecrated land for non-Catholics there. And the Tucker that's buried there, I believe is my grandfather's widow. He was killed during World War I, and so he never came home. He was buried there. This was probably personally was my biggest moment of this whole project, was to get my grandma back there. She's getting older now and stuff, and they haven't been there for a long time. And we had a blessing at the cemetery, probably one of the first ones, and long time. They came for that day, and that was like a really big moment for me to have them back there. And then also you'll see it in another picture, but that sign there, it's similar to the one up at St. Stephen's. So we got the diocese to put that there. So it was kind of a nice touch, getting their support behind us to recognize it. When we first started working at the cemetery, all this damage was from a lot of vandals and people drinking alcohol. This picture here, that's my aunt up there when they were starting that up there. They took headstones and made fire pits and would sit around and drink. That's what we walked into when we started this project. So it was kind of disgusting, graffiti on headstones. And this picture here kind of brought from my aunt because her son was killed in a car accident in 1981. And so they had started working up there. And they were working in the lower part of the cemetery, as I said. When they got up to this section here, one of them headstones has someone's initial painted on it. It was the kid that was driving the car that their son got killed. So it's very emotional, that picture. This here is the very first day that we went to the cemetery to start this project. There was this woman in the center, her name's Jody Moran. Her father was the Dayton police chief in the 1950s through the early 1970s. His name was John Moran. But I never knew either one of these two ladies. And she put something on Facebook on a Campbell County page. And it was talking about how disgusting St. Stephen's Cemetery was. And most of my family's buried there, and I go there quite often. And I said, well, you want to see something horrible? I'm going to show you the cemetery down where I grew up at. You want to see something horrible? Well, here, she grew up in Dayton. I didn't know her, but so then she said, why don't we meet and go up there? And I said, all right. I said, let's do it. This woman to the right of her had never been there, but she has family buried there. So we met, we went up there. I was laid off at the time, so I had nothing but time, and I thought, if I'm going to do it, this is the time to do it. The woman to the right, we are on our way to the cemetery, and you can only get there by railroad tracks because we have no access to it. So we're walking along, and I look in the ravine on the side of the railroad tracks, and I see what appears to be at the top of a headstone, but more so a military headstone. So I'm like, I said, let me check this out. We are about a football field from the cemetery. So I climbed over the embankment and pulled it out. And it turned out to be that woman to the right's great-great-grandmother. And she broke down and cried. And it was kind of touching because, we were three strangers. And I'm like, whatever we do, we got to do this. This is like a sign that we're doing this. And that was the first day there. And she still gets emotional. I talk to her every once in a while, and she gets emotional. That's when we pulled it out.
When was that picture taken? When did all this start?
This October 2012. That's her great-great-grandfather's headstone. His name was Adam Frepton. He's a Civil War veteran and a POW from Andersonville, one of the worst notorious prisons in the Civil War in Georgia. He was also captured on his way through Sherman's March on the way back to Washington. He was also POW then. But so social media played a huge part in this whole project. It started from it, but just meeting people. So I posted this, when we started this, and I'll show you next. We had a picture sent of this gentleman's in here. It was one of her relatives she's never met from Texas, of all places. But it's amazing how things travel like that. There was a doctor in Fort Thomas, and I think his name was Dr. Stevens. He was a friend of my Aunt Carol, and he had some pictures during the 70s, and that's what that headstone looked like back in the 70s. I think it was 73, because back then they actually put dates on the back of it. But that's
one.
Yeah, showed you before. That's what it looked like when it was intact. Yeah. And that's him there, Adam Frepton. The person that has them is like their fourth great-grandfather. She don't know nothing about it other than it was her great-grandmother picture, but name on the back of it, and knew he was from Dayton, Kentucky. This was another big turning point that got things rolling with us. We got in the newspaper and in the recorder, and there's so many things that came about this whole project that made you know you were doing something right. The woman that came to interview us, her last name's Jory, and so at the very beginning it was just me and Jody Moran doing this work now. And so we'd been going maybe 2 months at this, we were going a month about this time, but we did it by ourselves for about 2 months. That headstone in my hand there that she took a picture of all people, was one of her ancestors, and that's a Joring headstone. It was covered. I just happened to be working there when she came in. Here was one of her relatives. So she's from Silver Grove, but she has a lot of family. There's several Jorings that are buried up there. So it was just really just strange happenstance that I'd be working on that.
Serendipity.
Yeah. And that's Amanda. That was the reporter. That's Jody Moran. That was 2 months after we started at that point. Brings us to this. At the end of that first fall area, we had a meeting down in Dayton and had several people. And actually, the 2 guys that are sitting there are here tonight. So it's kind of special. Dennis. And Dennis is kind of the guy that runs the program. He's got
Raise your hands, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
When Dennis came along,
Look at that.
it really gave our project structure. And I can't tell you how much we accomplished once he came on board. The help is great when you're doing a project like this, but you run into where you got too many guys wanting to be chiefs and not enough Indians. And that's where we were at when Dennis came along, and everything kind of came together, and it really structured everything that was involved in this project. This was another picture from the 1980s to give you an idea of how thick it was in there. I mean, it's just, if you drove by it on a train, you would probably not even notice it. There was a cemetery there because you couldn't see nothing. And that's another picture from that one's from 75. So, I mean, you can tell it's just wasteland. And I only knew of it as a child that was there because of my grandmother and them and going there. I don't know what stage of this it really turned to this, but as a child, which my dad was born in 55, but as a child, my grandmother and my aunt, they would have picnics up there. And so it wasn't like this in the late 50s, early 60s. So the last burial is said to have been 1957, but I have yet to find the name or burial record for that. But there's records were kind of not very good for any of this here. There's another picture from 1984. Can't really see nothing there. And if you look, you can see at this point, even then, there's still a lot of broken headstones. And I mean, it's a real shame. And the bad thing with cleaning it is you always worry about, are you inviting people in that you don't want in there? And because there's some really beautiful German architecture, and they're in German headstones, German Campbell. And it's a shame some of them are gone forever now with the destruction. This is the chapel that the DuPont drawings of. This is the remnants of what's left of it. You can't tell it's there, but it went back in that code pretty far, and we found like metal and things that were in that building. So it's real heavy sandstone and rock stuff. This is when we started. We would take and have a big brush pile going up the middle of it, and we'd have to burn it all. But I couldn't tell you how many of those we did, but quite a few. And we have anywhere from 4 to 5 to maybe 10, 12 people up there at a time. And, a lot of work, a lot of people helped. I mean, it's really neat. I had people that I grew up with that I would never expected to be helping, but they did, and it, never know how people are. So just really, people get behind a good project and want to give their time to help. There's another picture. There's that tree that was in the one. Really, beyond that, you couldn't see much up there. It's so enclosed. The vines and things were just ungodly thick. Yes. Joe, right there, and that's a picture you're in there. I think that's you. When we first started, that's right behind that tree. I mean, it's just a little at a time, and just kept plugging and plugging away. But as you can see, here's some of the headstones with graffiti on them, and just total lack of respect for this is up in there. This section here, we have a flagpole and stuff now, but this is just to give you an idea how thick it is in there. This article here is the one for when they were digging the church. There was rumors that during Morgan's raid, from when he came from Augusta, that there was some gold that was hidden there at St. Francis Church. There used to be a tunnel to the river from the church. They never found it there, so, but that was just a rumor, but it made papers back then. And then this article here, this one's from 1909. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Spears Hospital, but on the end of the block there was a little nursing home station there on the other side of the hospital. This is at 4th and Boone Street, and they found 3 Indian skeletons buried there, and it made the papers because I guess everyone was scared. They were real tall people. They said they were like 7-foot skeletons or something, all 3 of them. But they took the remains and they're buried at St. Francis in an unmarked grave. But it says in the newspaper that they were in a box and buried in Comet Hill, which is the unconsecrated non-Campbell area of the cemetery. So we don't know where that's at exactly because it's not marked. There was never a headstone or a monument to it. So. But that was very interesting. Some people call it, younger people call that place, the St. Francis Indian Graveyard. I don't know if any of you heard of that, but this is where I think that came from. I don't know that, but that's my thinking. This is a list of the veterans that are buried there. There's 9 Civil War veterans, and there's the rest are Spanish-American War. And,
How did you get those names? Where did that come from?
those are all just from the church records and doing research on it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I put a lot of time into it. For 1 year, 2 years ago, I went through all the death records, and every day I would post on our Facebook page a record of who died on that day. I did that for 1 year. It was a lot of labor intensive.
Yeah, the 5th name up from the bottom is my great-grandfather,
Oh, okay.
Henry Rackers.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, I've been up there quite a bit, and I know where he's buried.
Yeah.
His tombstone's still there.
Yes, his is still there. Do you have some relatives that live out of town?
My brother lives in Columbus.
I had somebody email me about that,
Oh, my
but
cousin,
it's been a few years ago.
my cousin Paula lives in Florida.
That's who it was. It was in Florida. They asked for a picture of it. Yeah, I sent it to them. There's been a lot of people that contacted from all over, just through Facebook. It's been really interesting. Some of the people, and like I said, that one picture about him traveling came from that, and just finding out different stories and stuff about that. So it's really nice to hear from people because back then a lot of people grew out of Dayton and went further south and everything, being a river town. Yep.
This is still owned by the Diocese of Covington, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So why haven't they been maintaining it?
Well, they cut the grass every 2 weeks,
That's it?
and we volunteer to do the rest of it. I come from the place that I'm not going to go badmouth them. My kids go to Catholic schools. They were nice enough to let them start this. They told other people no. I mean, there's a lot of restrictions and things for people to sue, and everyone wants to sue everything. So I don't try to kick tires. I'm just trying to get the job done and not
Thank
raise
you.
too much money.
You said they had a cemetery blessing. Are they doing that now every year like
We,
all the
yeah,
other
we're doing that. Yes,
cemeteries?
we're doing things like that. Yeah, we've been in the bulletin and everything. So yeah, I mean we're getting there. It's you can't change it overnight because you figure probably 50 years of time. So.
But they weren't cutting the grass every 2 weeks
They were
until you
still-
all started.
No, they were still cutting the grass, but there was trees and there was a lot of things that needed to be done. But it's getting done a lot better now.
When the Historical Society went up here in the 1990s, it was an absolute disaster. We spent the greater part of 4 weekends cleaning it up. And I confronted Mr. Nienaber, the Diocese Cemetery Board, and I shamed him into saying that, there's no reason. This is a diocese cemetery, and you've walked away from it. So we made a verbal agreement that he would start doing something up there. We had the easement problem was already a problem, but he agreed at that point they would start doing something up there. I lost track of it probably 15 or 20 years ago now, so I don't know what he kept doing, but apparently they're at least trying to keep a little grass going.
Yeah, they were keeping what was cleared where they could get to cut it that way.
When we went up there, you couldn't, like you say, you couldn't even see
Yeah.
the cemetery. We cleaned out most of the brush and the smaller trees, we didn't cut down any big trees.
Right.
And we went up behind the F&M Steakhouse and helped we got there and went across the railroad tracks. And we finally went up on that street above there and went down the railroad track. They have a vehicle to go down there. That's how we made access to it. But we were
Right.
told that, legally you can't be on the railroad track. That's railroad property.
Right. That's,
So where do you come down to that property? From which
we
street?
go down the railroad tracks.
What street is that? Did you access?
Sixth Street.
Sixth Street.
Yeah, we have talked to the mayor, Dayton, the police department. We let them know if we're doing anything up there and that, so please.
Sixth Street?
Yes, 6th Street, yeah.
My property adjoins the cemetery
Okay.
from Fort Thomas.
Okay.
So we have just made a path from our house down to the cemetery. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah.
That's us.
Okay.
If you want to use it anytime, you're welcome.
Yeah, we
Part for your driveway.
No, you can just come through our side yard. That's how we go down through
Be
the side
surprised.
yard.
People spend the time to carry a headstone way up in the middle of the woods. It's down there, so it's kind of shameful. People spend
Yeah,
the
when
time.
we went down there were kids putting tombstones on a railroad track to see how much they'd smash up the trail when the train went past.
Well, more than likely, that headstone that we found that first day we went out there was a victim of that. Because that's where it was at.
When they hit them, they'd knock them off the track and they'd go a distance in all directions.
Yeah, I would say that was probably about a football field from the cemetery where we found that. Okay, this headstone here is one of the first physicians in Campbell County. His name was Dr. Willard Taft. His father's name was George Washington Taft, and he was named after General George Washington, who later became President George Washington. His grandfather ran an inn in Massachusetts, and they're of the same family up as President Taft. And so it was kind of neat. The Taft Museum up in Massachusetts actually has a letter from George Washington thanking his grandfather for naming his son George Washington. I asked for a copy of it. They were intrigued. I sent them a picture of the headstone and explained the story, but I still have yet to get anything from them. I would love to have that someday. His daughter married into the MacArthur family, which owned the Newport Dayton streetcar. This is a picture of him here. That's his family. He was well liked from what I've read about him and everything. So. That's another article about the Taft family and their origins. I believe his father's buried over in Cincinnati. Private cemetery. Here's another one for me. I grew up on 4th Street, Dayton, right, if you're familiar where Tacoma Pool was. I lived right down the street from there. There was always an empty lot. As a kid, we played touch football in. And I always wondered, was there a house here sometime, or did a flood take it away? Well, at my 40 years old, I find out that these 2 children were killed in a fire in that house. So that was right on 1100 block of 4th Street.
That was my aunt and uncle. That was my aunt and uncle.
That is? Nice.
Never grew up.
Yeah, we always, Jody Moran always likes to put something on them.
Yeah, I know Jody decorates.
Yeah, she really takes care of them every year.
Yeah.
That's another one of the older headstones that are up there. So the first person that was buried there was Mary Ludwig, which was only 2 months old. That headstone I've never seen there, but this is one of the older ones there from 1849, which I guess some people were actually moved to the cemetery from this age, but there's no documentation of it. But for it to be that old, that's before the cemetery was there, before the land was even purchased. Yeah. This is during one of the blessings up there. like I said, it's been really nice to have that involvement with the project. In the first couple of years, we weren't really even trying to get into that because we were just trying to get stuff done there. So, but Father Mark has been very supportive and very into like the blessings of the cemetery. And so it's very nice and meaningful, especially for the people that come into town that don't live around here that are in for that. So, another picture back going on. This is Dennis picked the place to put this flagpole at to honor our veterans now. So we go to dig that hole to put that flagpole in there, and lo and behold, about a couple feet down in the ground, we hit cedar 4x4. Well, that's where the cross next to that chapel stood. So it was buried by a few feet of dirt. So it's kind of a neat little thing, one of the little things that happened up there. So yeah, and that was right where that fire pit was in that previous picture. We did Flag Day. We had a trumpet player and the people that donated the flagpole and stuff for us. And so we had a service up there, which was really neat. There was a lot of things. Every year there'd be a parade on Decoration Day, which is Memorial Day today. And they would have a parade that started down at 4th and Benham Street, down where the original St. Francis was. And they would go out to the cemetery. And this started in the early 1900s. And it would be the Guard, which is the Grand Army. They would march out there. And then I think in 1914, they actually did a thing up there where they actually read the Gettysburg Address up there. They had a choir and everything in the cemetery. So kind of neat to think what kind of things went on there. This is us doing the flagpoles. You can see how much like grass, stems, and everything we can get out of the ground and digging that all up. So labor of love for sure. And this is that's Joe Webb. He was very supportive with helping us with different causes at the cemetery. He actually in the early 80s went there with my aunt, and he couldn't believe our progress at that point, which we were way beyond that even now. Because he, like you were saying, how you couldn't see in the cemetery, and so you can only imagine what 10 years prior to that was. So, but he was really impressed. He has been awesome to us to take care of things. So, hated to see him retire. This is Dennis, where he was digging that hole we were talking about. Of all places, like I said, just to find that was very interesting. Because the only picture we have of that cross being there was in that drawing of Mr. DuPont. There's a flagpole, nice solar light on it and stuff, so it looks really pretty up there. Another services with the priest up there. We go up every spring, we plant flowers, and try to do that right before Memorial Day and stuff. This gives you an idea of the kind of work we do. This up here was really thick. And this is the upper section of the cemetery. We believe there's probably maybe 30 graves up here. And it's very steep, as you can see by the other pictures. So you can imagine bringing a wagon up there to dig these graves. You know, it's really steep. That's scraping it and get the grass to start to come in. We got one headstone up there that's massive that you can't turn over that I'd love to see. We have no record of it. It's like, it's been driving me nuts since 2012. One of these days, so hopefully I'll get my rotator cuff fixed pretty soon. There's another picture of that tree that was in that one picture. You can see how thick the grass coming in now. It just really warms my heart to see that now, because there was a lot of thorns in our skirts and everything, so we've got a lot of work in there. Dennis has the Midas touch with the grass there. We go in there and scrape it down. I don't know what he does. He gets it going.
Got a green thumb.
Yeah. And this is during the Flag Day celebration, and that we did off all the veterans' name. We, like you said, we had a trumpet player from Dayton High School. She came up there, and this group called the Woodsmen, they donated the flagpole hat. And unfortunately, they had to donate it twice because we had some vandalism there. There was about 12 guys hanging off the original one, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, and broke it off. So since then, we have not had any problems, but it can be anywhere. But when that happened initially, I was really impressed. I had a sheriff in Grant County call me, and he was on some kind of task force. The Veterans Cemetery down in Grant County, there was a woman stealing things in a van. They had a picture of her, but for whatever reason, they could never capture the license plate number on her car. But he had things to put in the cemetery that would actually track it. And he offered his services to us. But we've really never had any problems really since then, so knock on wood. And that was that. This is the way the cemetery looks now. That plant that's there has been there for a long, long time. It's in some of the very early pictures there. So it's still there. We try to really care for it.
You'll never get rid of it,
Yeah. Another picture, a wider view of the cemetery. All this was, like over behind that tree was covered. I mean, give you an idea of what was in there. So, it's amazing. Like, I still pinch myself, and I couldn't find an hour to spend there, but it's just really incredible that all that was sitting there. And, yeah, just to think all the people that spent their time to help do that is amazing. And to preserve a piece of history, you know. My daughter, she went to St. Trees up here, but it's new camp, they have to get service hours, so it was really nice having some of the kids come up there that are willing to help and that are actually interested in history.
Report, treasurer's report, we had a balance on hand of $6,832.69. As of last meeting, current membership stood at 273. Under newsletter, the January issue of the newsletter will be out at the end of December, and will include the membership renewal form and a flyer for the 2019 essay contest. Under Veterans Report, Pam reported that the Society is in need of a display case to house the artifacts of Korean War veteran Harry Ledman. History Day, Richard reported that History Day 2019 will be held on March 23rd at the Erlanger branch of the Kenton County Library. All speakers for the events have been scheduled, and notices for the event will be mailed out to all prospective attendees this year, as they were not last year. Under office business, gifts and donations, Richard reported on the gifts and donations received over last month, including a book on Samuel Whitfield, donated by Jim Schroer, dolls donated by Mary Runyon, and the book, The Betrayal of Pearl O'Brien, which was donated by the author Larry Tippin. Society publications, Glenn reported that the Hayfield Precinct book is now at the printers, with the proof copy expected to be delivered the week of 12/17, and the book was to be available shortly after the first of the year. And for those new, we do have the book here and for sale tonight, if anybody's interested. Society Facebook page, Steve thanked Kevin Nelker, who was in attendance, for his work on the Society's Facebook page. Views of the page were up considerably due to the interest of the topics that he had researched and published on it. A community survey, Steve discussed a community survey that's being undertaken by a society and passed out cards to all present, asking them to share the information with friends and family. And the information on the card was led to our website. I'm sorry.
$32.69. We had 4 renewals during December. A donation, a cumulative donation in memory of Joyce Gosney for $415. $100 in donations for our essay contest. We collected $15.52 in interest for a net income of $578.52. We spent $120 for office supplies and supplies for their Christmas party. Renewed subscriptions for our McAfee antivirus. We made the down payment for the book, partial payment, $315. And we donated $45 to the Wreaths Across America. And our net expenses were $531.67. And we ended the month with $6,879.54.
Very good, thank you. Richard could not be here tonight. He sent me an email this afternoon. Richard normally covers History Day and our gifts and donations. Unfortunately, his grandmother apparently had a not serious problem, but he had to take care of something. Donations from the previous month. Mr. Nick Cleaves donated a Black & Decker electric grill from the 1940s. It was apparently the first personal handheld drill that would take a different bit size and all sorts of things. So there's a whole story that goes with it. There's an article that's attached with it. He also had a bicentennial calendar of the American Revolution. And Ms. Janet Ginter also donated to us a DVD from St. John's United Church of Christ, a film from 1939 and 1941. Dan Kristen donated a church altar piece. Is that correct, Dan?
It's a home altar, yes.
A home altar, okay. And Mr. Ed Hansen donated a film from Beverly Hills Supper Club. And he said for History Day, the committee met last night. Plans are going well. Nothing has changed since last meeting. History Day will still be March 23rd at the Erlanger branch of the library. And he said we're creating a flyer to mail and it will go out mid-February. Jan, you want to cover membership, newsletter, correspondence, and everything else?
Okay, at the end of 2018, our membership stood at right about 275. 275 paid-up members. That includes regular members and life members, and a couple of people who we give complimentary memberships to. Now we start over. I've already recorded over 60 new renewals for the just people sent in from the newsletter. The renewal, so we're over 60, and I just got another stat from Glenn tonight, so we're up about 100 members for 2019. Keep your renewals coming in if you haven't paid yet. You can do that. Anyone here who would like to join us and who's not a current member, it's $12 a year. We have business memberships and technology sponsorships available also. If you know a local business, we try to reach out to people who are longtime Campbell County residents to ask them if they'd like to support us that way. So let us know if you've got any leads on that.
Hey, Jan?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just mention some of the benefits of being a member, our newsletters
Well,
and discounts on books?
Members get our newsletter 3 times a year. We just recently are revamping our pricing schedule or price list for our publications. We're going to start giving members a discount on our publications. So like this new Cam Springs book, we're going to sell it to members for $10. It'll be $12 for non-members. Members also get email and or phone reminders for each of our meetings. And you're invited, invited to any special events that we have. So, and you can have full use of our research library and our museum. So that's some of the things membership can get you. The newsletter, next newsletter, well, the last one should have been out to everybody who's a member. If you didn't get it and you didn't get one?
No.
Anybody else? This worries me, so I have to, I'll check on that.
too.
Yeah, because they all went out at the end of December. So you should have it in your hands by now. I will check, Mike, for yours. And if anybody else, you can come up and give me your name and I'll check. I'll send you a copy via email because a PDF copy you can open for this time. We had a request. The next newsletter will be the May issue. It'll come out at the end of April. A member sent us a letter about the 4th Street School in Newport that is no longer there. She felt, her name is Brenda Salter, she thought it would be important for young people to know about 4th Street School and people who aren't familiar with it, and she would like an article about it in the newsletter. I'll take anybody who wants to volunteer to do that.
You knew that was coming.
That is a misnomer for that school. That was also the Newport Junior High School, located in the same building.
Okay.
I think Mike.
I think we
I
got a
think anybody who's interested in doing that, we have some resources about all the schools in the county at our research library. You could come up and check out what we have on the school there, and you could maybe do some digging and find out more. Ken Reese is hoping that somebody volunteers, because if they don't, I'm going to get him. Because he's kind of our school expert. So it would be nice to have an article about that in the newsletter. If anybody else wants to research anything else or has something, get things to me by the 1st of April.
And we'll take multiple.
Oh,
We've had
yeah.
that before.
Oh, yeah. Any article.
Different perspectives.
Okay, correspondence. We had a note from the Campbell County Library, their signature series. Upcoming event is on January 18th, next Friday night at 7 o'clock at the Newport Branch. A presentation called The Common Man, selections from the book by Kentucky poet Maurice Manning. It might be a nice night of poetry. A couple of new printouts from the Family History Library, the Latter-day Saints. FamilySearch.org has new records that they release all the time. They are digitizing their records like crazy. A couple of things of note for our area. They have just put online some county naturalization records from Ohio. So if any of your people came in and stopped in Cincinnati and were naturalized there, but then moved across to Kentucky, you might find something. Also, some church records from Baden in Germany. A lot of our people came from that area who settled here. They also have classes on FamilySearch.org, online classes. There's a couple coming up at the end of the month that are both for beginners. Tips and tricks to find elusive records on their site, and research help in searching records on their family trees. So you can come up and look at these. There's instructions on the website for how to access. And I think that's all I have.
Excellent. Thanks, Jan. Sharon's taken on a huge project for us, and that is all of our maps. There's probably, I don't know, there's hundreds and hundreds of maps. It's probably, what, 15, 20 feet long? I mean, stacks of them. Can you kind of bring everybody up to speed as to what you've been working on?
Yeah, we have one of these 6 metal file cabinets that are for mapping, and there's aerial maps and old maps, and there's just been one big, yeah, they're in there, but you'd have to look for what you're looking for. We don't have an index, and that's what I'm trying to do, identify the areas. We have, I've gone through about 100 aerial maps where they're just aerial maps, and if you don't live in Campbell County, you know nothing about, and you don't know anything about the area, you don't even know where it is. So I'm going through there, finding where they are, the roads that are on there, writing it on the back, and then putting it into our database so that you'll be able to type in the names of the roads, and it will bring up the numbers on those maps, and they will no longer be lost. But the aerial maps, they're photographs, and they're from in the mid-50s, before the double A and all that. So it's a daunting task. Plus, we have maps there from 1883. Yeah, and there's just tons and tons, and I just keep wading through. But eventually, you'll have something that you can go into the database and find stuff. So it'll be really nice to look at those old maps. The placards with property owner names on them from 1883, which is kind of interesting.
Thanks, Sharon. Well, it's a cemetery night. Mike, you want to bring us up to speed on
Next meeting of the Friends of Evergreen, 28th February, 7 o'clock at the Antique at Fort Thomas Mall.
Okay. Can I put you on the spot? Stand up. Kay James. Kay has agreed, and unfortunately everybody knows that we lost Marvin here, and Marvin and Buck were our cemetery guys. Kay has agreed to take on doing our cemetery work, and she had a little issue in the fall in that she had 2 children being married within 6 weeks of each other, correct? Okay? She was a little busy, okay? But now that that's all settled down and the holidays are settled down, she's going to get back into that, so we're going to get her kind of oriented to where we are and what we've done and what we need done, and let her start digging into that. So we'll get some reports for her, you know, as we go a little further into the year. Shirlene, do you have anything on the essay contest at this point? Nothing? Okay. Anything on? No. Okay, excellent. Glenn, come on, do your thing. This is finally out.
This is the easy part. It's here, it's here.
It's here.
It's here after months and months and months of work and contributions from all kinds of folks. You know, we did it, redid it, and sent it back trying to make sure that the photographs and the rest of it retained its detail when we sent them over to the printer. So we actually got...
How many revisions did that go through?
I lost track at about 60.
Okay.
So it's been, you know, it's been thoroughly gone through by several people, and contributions. You know, Shirlene and my wife contributed to the genealogy section. So if a name appears in here, there's a text box that has a family with all the available information about friends and or other relatives, children, and all of that. The photos that were in the other book were, the other book was actually just a Xerox of the Xerox. So if we found pictures of folks that were in the book, we added those on thumbnails. We have the farms, where they were, the descriptions. And then the book is actually a revision from the original text. And it talks about the architecture and the buildings and that whole sect of people. So we have Mr. Longworth, that Nicholas Longworth, that came in and talked about the wine industry early on in there. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. It has, just like it says, it's a kind of a history. Talks about most of the stone houses, and there's a considerable portion of genealogy. So it was fun to do, although it was tedious. But we expanded it as much as we could. Found the passenger lists where a lot of the folks, the heavy players from there, Enzwallers and Gulpsers and whatever, where they came over, and found out that, you know, the one, you know, the 3 or 4 of the names all came over on the same ship on the same voyage. You know, a lot of really interesting facts. So if you have the old one, you can throw it away, because this one is a marked improvement. If you haven't seen it at all, then I think you'll still be pleasantly surprised with this one. So we have them here for sale.
We have some here tonight. If anybody's interested, as Jan said, our new program is discounted rates for members. So the non-members are going to be paying $12 for this. Members are going to be paying $10 for it. Okay? And some people might even find old pictures of themselves in there, right, Linus? Following on the heels of this, We've got another new book that we're doing, okay? If you saw your newsletter, there was a flyer in there. We're looking for photographers. We're gonna do a book called One Day in Campbell County. And we're gonna take one particular day and ask photographers, amateur and professional, to go out everywhere in the county and take pictures. What I see out of this book is something that is going to be left for generations, forever and ever and ever. It's always a thrill when we do one of our events and you take our photo albums out there and people see pictures from the early 1900s. You know, they love it. They love seeing that, of what their town or their community looked like 100 years ago. That's what this book is for. We want people 100 years from now. I have a feeling people aren't going to change that much. They're still going to get excited about that. And we want to give them a book showing them, I want to see every square inch of this county in that book so that they can, 100 years from now, they can see all of those things. So we're looking for photographers, okay? There's going to be a general information meeting right here on March 30th. That's a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And we're going to go through all the details of how to submit and all of those kind of things. And then photo day is going to be April 27th, right after Easter. We should start having some spring flowers coming out, unless we get a frost late or something. And somebody said, well, what if it's raining? I said, well, then we'll have pictures of a rainy day, because that's what the day is. And we just want to show one day of everything in this county. So if you know anybody that's interested, get them to sign up for this. Everybody has to be registered, because that's how we're going to keep track of who submitted what picture. And then any picture that is chosen for the publication, that photographer is going to get a free copy of the book. Okay? So anybody you know, everybody's taking pictures these days. Everybody has a camera on their phone. Just sign up and go out and take some pictures and submit them. Okay?
Or go in and take pictures. It doesn't have to be outside.
No. It could be inside. We want people, we want streetscapes, we want our rural areas, we want the rivers. I've told people, I don't care if they're underwater, I don't care if they're aerial, I don't care if they're panoramas. We want to show what this county looks like on April 27th, 2019. And it's going to be for your grandkids, your great-great-grandkids, you know, however far back you want to go. That's who this is for. Is Kevin here tonight? There he is. Stand up. Here's another newcomer that's getting involved. We talked about Kevin Neltner last month. Kevin has been managing, or not managing, but kind of overseeing our Facebook page. I think he liked doing it because for this semester, he, what do you ask? You asked for an internship?
I know that.
Okay, he submitted, he wanted an internship to continue doing that. He did such a great job that we said we thought that was a wonderful thing. NKU also thought it was a wonderful thing, and they granted him the internship. So for the next semester, Kevin's going to be throwing a lot of stuff onto our Facebook page once again. And we got such response from the last stuff he did. Looking forward to it.